Hi, and welcome to episode 36 of CultureWatch Radio. I'm Andrew Smith, and with me is Bill Muhlenberg. Bill, you often refer to something called Caldron Pool. It sounds like a big oversized spa with bubbles. What is that?
Well, Andrew, it could be, but in this case, if your listeners have any understanding of, say, C.S. Lewis, the Chronicles of Narnia, that term will be familiar. But in this case, it's actually a website that's been around for a while, which I have been referring people to, a very good website indeed. They claim to be a politically and theologically conservative outfit, begun by Ben Davis and a few others, and they put out some really quality material, which I often go to. In fact, every day I check out, see what they have. So it's kind of like CultureWatch, actually. Covers many of the same bases and does a great job. And if I'm not mistaken, we may have a few of their contributors here with us today.
Well, one of the writers is Rod Lampard. G'day, Rod.
G'day. Thanks, Bill and Andrew, for having us on.
Good. And the second one, I'm going to introduce her with this little clip from Paul Murray on Sky News.
To be fair, when you can't get a woman sacked, arrested or dropped by a publisher and cancelling her only made her book sales go up, there really is only one place to go. And the threat? To kill her. Because she has a controversial view about what constitutes a woman, Evelyn.
Yeah, look, this is the philosophy of the left. If you can't beat them with an argument, beat them with a club.
How good is that? And she's also handy for weapons. Introducing Evelyn Ray.
Thank you very much for having me, Bill and Andrew.
You know, I'm feeling really generous today. I'm going to let Bill ask the questions.
All right. Well, thanks, guys, for joining us. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you. Let me start with Rod. As we said, Ben Davis is the kind of, I guess, mastermind behind Caldron Pool, but you're a heavy hitter as well. Tell us a bit about your involvement with Caldron Pool.
Well, Caldron Pool began as a no-compromise platform for Christian doers and thinkers to share their work without a strong arm of leftist censorship. I think he'd agree that the academy, bureaucracy, and clergy are filled with left, centre-left, far-left ideologues, and kind of clogs the system a bit. So, as David Horowitz said, that conservatives are pushed out of the environment, the public arena, and leftism is the new hegemony. So, Caldron Pool kind of fills a gap and provides an opportunity for people to voice their views, where they're not allowed to. So CP offers an intelligible replacement to this hegemonic power, and that's what attracts me to it. Myself, I was doing some work with XYZ in Melbourne, and that really came about through the 2017 debate with SSM. I sort of cut my teeth on that issue as far as being a serious writer is concerned, and just went from there to having a bit of a conflict, inner conflict, because my philosophy and theology didn't really match with theirs, and so I laid it before the Lord. 6 months later, after a lot of prayer, I sort of messaged Caldron Pool on Instagram, and Ben sent a message back. I didn't know it was Ben at the time, but he sent a message back saying, send me some of your stuff, I'll check it out, and pretty much the rest is history. So we seem to be a pretty good match as far as my own content. I have had a blog. I've been running a blog for since 2013 after I finished at Tabor Adelaide, but it's sort of been my own little thing where I throw up thoughts, and some of it's a little bit more convoluted than I'd like, but as of the time I've sort of refined my skills, I suppose, and Caldron Pool's helped do that, and given a voice, like I said, to many who have been pushed out of the public arena, and I think that we aim to offer a relevant gospel witness to the truth rather than a watered-down Jesus Christ who's often surrendered to the lords of this world. I think that includes the church and some of the leaders in the church as well. As I said yesterday, I sort of put it on social media that good government points to the eternal King. Everything else is worthless chaff, and that's coming from Isaiah 32:1-2. I think that's one of the aims of Caldron Pool. One of the good things and strengths of Caldron Pool is that speak truth in love where we can, in order to uphold a theology of the cross contra to a theology of glory. And that means we don't do fluff. No soppy, candy-coated self-help in any way. So that means that sometimes, there's going to be a very difficult thing to balance the heat with the light, because the zeitgeist, the current culture is very hard to speak into, and in some ways because of cancel culture, because of a bunch of other issues. You know what they are. You've experienced them, and Evelyn has this as well. So I mean, it's a good platform, and I think that particularly with COVID-19, we've really come into our our zone in a way, because we've been a voice of relevance to a lot of people who feel like they're being ignored, and feel like their voice is being ignored. And I think that's it gives them hope. And that's some of the messages we've received. And I've received some emails from people just responding to some of the articles we've written, telling us that they really appreciate what's being said, and that it's a source of light for them, and also a source of hope where they can look to the cross and look to Christ and go, this isn't the end, and there is other people out there who think a similar way to me. And there are people who even are challenged by what's been written, what's been said. And that's a good thing too, because it brings a level of correction and I think a righteousness that comes with that. So it's an aim to be honest, and the aim is to be honest and to, as best we can, resource and reference as painstakingly as possible. It's very hard because you can't have a 2,000-word academic essay. It's got to be pointed and readable. So often the references will be hyperlinked. As much as I personally love the academic sort of style, where you've got a big long list of references, it's just not doable. So if people are looking for references and looking to really get deeper into the articles, they can, because we've painstakingly referenced our sources. And we get criticised sometimes for being right wing, but the irony of that is that a lot of our material is sourced from left wing media. And I know one time, I think it was The Conversation or Crikey, they tried to criticize us, and we called them out on it, and they retracted it, sort of thing. But it's one of those things that I think people are well served by, in a way. I don't know if I'm going too far by saying we're trying to wash people's feet, but and serve them in that respect, like a servant leadership kind of position. But that's really why I'm part of it. That's how I came to it, and that's why I think it's an important voice in the Australian media scene.
Great. Wow. Thanks for that, Rod. And another major league player here at Caldron Pool is Evelyn Ray. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to be involved in Caldron Pool.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. So I come from a very different background. I served in the police for 12 years, and I was a detective, and I did lots of investigations and things over the course of my time that I served. But one thing I wasn't allowed to do when I served was have a public opinion or speak publicly about matters, whether it be politics and culture and society and things like that. Because of my contract, because of the oath that I swore, I was kind of bound and gagged, I guess you could say, for those 12 years. So when I resigned from the police, I felt like I was in a very unique position to now be able to speak publicly about things. I had a really high intensity career, and I guess I was looking and searching for somewhere else to put my energy and all of those things. And, like Rod said, I think Caldron Pool is so incredibly well done. It's unapologetically Christian, which is something that I adore. And it's unapologetically strong in its positions, and it doesn't waver. And I think a lot of the problems that we are facing today is because of a weak church, because we have somewhat watered down Christianity. We've become ashamed of it. There's a whole debate about church and state, but I've said this and I stand by this. My theology is what determines what I do in the voting booth. I can't separate the two. It would be like separating oxygen from the air that I breathe. And so I absolutely loved being given the opportunity to write for Caldron Pool, because they were similar with me in that they don't separate their Christian views from the news. It's like reading the news with the Bible in one hand and the news in the other. And that's something that I really liked and got behind, and somewhere where I was very happy to put all my time and effort into. And Ben's done such an amazing job. He's incredibly intelligent when it comes to theology, and he's very good at all of the graphics and the computer side and the website. So he's kind of the whole package and the whole deal, and makes it super easy. I always say to myself, if I can get something through all the writers like Rod and Ben and everything at Caldron Pool, then I must be on the right track, because I really respect all of their opinions so much. So very, very honored to be a part of it.
Great stuff. Rod, briefly, you'd have a few controversies and a few times where people are maybe not thrilled with what you're doing. Tell us a bit about some of the things that maybe get you into a bit of trouble at times.
Yeah, I think it's hard to narrow down because we've got a lot of haters. But anyway, it's we have some self-important nitpickers. We got trolls in some organizations who just, I don't know, maybe see CP as a threat. But, I guess we can counter it all. It's not unlike anyone else who's trying to speak openly and honestly and maybe air the room out a bit and address the elephant in that room. I think that's just the part and parcel of when you speak into something, and people just don't naturally like having to face it or having to encounter it. Specifically, I think Eternity News' swipe at Caldron Pool and ACL over what they've called tone, violent rhetoric, and a lack of nuance probably stands out as the biggest, only because of the animosity from some of the Eternity News writers towards Caldron Pool. It just seems to be an ongoing obsession. I won't really go into the specifics of that, but people who do know the kind of drama that went on there a few months ago, would be aware of that. I think the best way to respond to any kind of situation where you have unhealthy competition in the church from church leaders is to sort of laugh a bit, make a bit of fun of it, which is what I try to do. I made a meme, a couple of memes, and that I was criticized for that too. But I think we just gotta lighten up a little bit, if you know what I mean. It's just not us as Caldron Pool, but we I think the church in Australia, I think we're just too uptight. We need to take it a little bit easier and be a bit more joyful in our approach to things. And that's something that really, I think, me as a writer for Caldron Pool, I try to do on a regular basis. And I know Ben is putting that up too with his art and his illustrations to really sort of convey a message that communicates truth in love, and to bring that about. I don't think it's a stretch to say that when Eternity is lashed out, and I think irrationally, it's one of their writers anyway, over things that we've said, I think that sort of exemplifies the majority of people who criticize us. They either don't read the article properly, they don't follow the references, or they only read the headline and respond to it, which is, I think, is part of the endemic to social media. That most people just react to the headline. They don't bother reading the actual content, engaging with the arguments that are made. So, I think that's part of it. I also think that it's the fact that we don't align with approved narratives of groupthink, or simply because we said something different or thought something different, or even perhaps because someone maybe wanted to say it but didn't say it and didn't get around to say it. Maybe there's some professional jealousy there. I don't know, but it's worrisome, I think, for the Christian church to have this kind of division. There's nothing wrong with healthy competition and healthy criticism, but when it becomes nasty and bitter, and I've seen that, it's been eye-opening. Actually, I've seen it from with the Eternity News stuff that happened a few months back. There is a real sense that as critics from within the clergy know what they're doing and know that what we're saying is right, but I think some of them refuse to to agree or to even step up or deliberately go and oppose us because they fear losing a privileged place in that leftist hegemony, which I talked about before when we first with that first question. There is, I think, an approved opposition, to use the phrase, that people want to stay within and would rather uphold the status quo in that respect. I think what we're saying that ruffles some people as well is that Caldron Pool, especially the COVID-19, we're telling pastors that they are essential, that pastoral care is essential, that church is an essential caregiver. And so it's kind of mind-boggling that you have church leaders in this country telling us that we're being evil and we're being violent with our words by criticizing government overreach, when they themselves are victims of a government telling them that they're not essential and that they don't fit in the holistic paradigm of care and healthcare. I think that's just bizarre. But yeah, whether that's to feed self-interest in that approved opposition, I don't know. It's probably part of that. I think the second biggest and most recent, just to finish, would be the Ezekiel Declaration. With some criticism for that. Again, that sort of reflects, I think, the maybe the dissonance. I'm not sure. It's really hard to put a finger on, which is why I said it's hard to narrow down either cause or reasons for why we find that there's this kind of hostility in the criticism we receive. To me, the ED is a grassroots movement. It's giving voice to people who feel like they have no voice, pastors in particular in small churches who don't have the 3,000 or 1,000 members, who aren't a part of that approved opposition, but who feel strongly about the government telling them they're not essential when they are by someone's deathbed and someone who's sick and they're caring for them. And I mean, these guys don't get paid a hell of a lot to care the way they do, but yet they're there, on the phone late at night. They're there, and they are essential caregivers. So I think it's a betrayal of those guys who are and the laymen who are really out there pushing to care for their neighbour and love their neighbour, even in such a crisis such as COVID-19. And to say that they're not essential caregivers and to criticise anyone who challenges that narrative, I think is a betrayal of their work, their care, and really the theology of it. I mean, it's a bad thing. So I think that with the Ezekiel Declaration, we're on the right side of history with that, because if you look at the Confessing Church's Barman Declaration, the Confessing Church was criticised by the Church of the day for being a hindrance and undermining the state in their criticism of the Reich's totalitarianism. I think you pointed that out in a couple of recent articles. So yeah, finally, I think that the Ezekiel Declaration, and I think it's why it's driven a lot of criticism and heat, is simply because it's doing what some of the church should be doing but isn't, and some of the church leaders, and that is wielding the gospel, telling the state, wielding the sword, that it must radically reverse any and all policies that serve to enslave and harm rather than liberate and heal. And I wrote that in an article a few weeks back, but I fully believe that, and thank God for Caldron Pool.
Well, thanks, Rod. And
good stuff.
Last question, Evelyn. You, as we heard, you had a little clip there from Sky News, so you've become a bit of a media superstar, at least on Sky News. Tell us just a bit about your involvement there.
Well, I'm not sure I would agree with the title you have given me, but I thank you for thinking a bit more highly of me than I probably am or deserve. But look, I have no idea how it sort of came about, to be honest. It's one of those things that I look back on and I can't put a finger on it. But I was just given an opportunity. I was asked by some of the producers if I would be on a panel. And I was very nervous because obviously my background is not journalism. It's not media. It's very different. So I was a bit, a fish out of water. But by God's grace, he sort of gave me the strength. And before I go on, I always pray that, he'll tame my tongue and he'll give me wisdom and discernment so that I can represent him well. And I've sort of, I've come to terms with the fact that I will never compromise on my faith, on who I am and why I am the person that I am, and that is because of Christ. And I won't compromise what I believe Christ tells me to do and what his Bible says. And so I'm just so grateful that regardless of all of these things, because I think media pushes Christianity in the back door, and regardless of all of that, I've still been given a spot on mainstream media, and I'm just going to try and use it to the best of my abilities and for his glory. And so, I feel like a little bit of a peasant, and I'm happy just to take these little breadcrumbs as they're given to me and continue with the momentum. And we'll see what comes from it. But I just I'm super grateful that I'm a reformed Christian who has been given time on mainstream media. And when I'm on there, I unapologetically, sort of point to Christ in so many of my responses and answers and everything. And I'm still asked to go back on. So I'm very grateful for it. And I hope it continues. But whatever's in store, I have to learn to trust in his plan more than my own.
Fantastic. Well, thanks to you, Evelyn and Rod, and thanks to Ben Davis. We do urge everyone listening to check out caldronpool.com. Fantastic website, great articles and information every day. So thanks for being with us today, and back to you, Andrew.
Thanks, Bill. And as always, in addition to Caldron Pool, there's always more at the Culture Watch website. And we'll see you again next week with another episode of Culture Watch Radio. Subscribe where you listen at SoundCloud, YouTube, and Rumble so you don't miss a thing.